Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's a new year and we're going to start the new year by talking about the old year. I did a lot of things last year and a lot of them were stupid. It's one of those things that I've had CFS for so long now, I think I'm an expert in it, and then I go and repeatedly do things that prove I am not. And I wanted to talk through some of the best and worst things I did for my CFS this year. Hopefully this will mean you don't make the same stupid mistakes, or maybe you can even implement some of the good things that I did. So I've got on a little list. So we're going to go in time order. Right at the start of the year, I was still working on my university dissertation. I'd finished all the other stuff for my degree. I just had my dissertation to go. At New Year, I was so close, but I worked on it for another month. So I didn't finish my dissertation until the end of January. And the whole dissertation, the whole 6 months, I would put in the bad column. Though good in some ways, I've got my degree, I finished it, I did well. For my CFS, it was bad. It was categorically bad. It ruined my baseline. It really changed the things that my body could handle. It was such a big impact. The dissertation really hit my life like a meteor, and it has not been the same since. We are not over it. We are not past it. We have not recovered from it. It's almost a year since I stopped working on it and we are still in aftershocks. So advice if you are doing university or school or college or any kind of learning in a structured format, if you can, if they let you, I would really suggest cutting down the amount of work, so going to part-time or extending the amount of time you're working on something. I know not every institution is flexible, which really sucks, but if you have that flexibility, take it, use it, because in my head at the time I was overworking myself and it was awful and my body hurt all the time and I was impaired. It was awful. But I thought, once I'm done, once I've finished, I'll be okay. And though I'm obviously better than when I was literally in it, I'm not back to my normal. I'm not back to my baseline, what I was like before. I am physically more tired, more in pain. I have less stamina. I have much more payback and crashes, and they're much more severe than they were before for the same activity. And I think I didn't anticipate that. But looking back, I overworked myself. Let's say I overworked myself extremely for a year and a half. Being that it's only been a year since I stopped doing that, it's not actually that surprising that I'm still feeling the effects, but I am surprised, I was surprised. So I would suggest not doing what I did. If you can, reduce the amount of work you're doing, get a better schedule, make sure you're not killing yourself to get something done to that extent. Obviously getting things done with CFS generally means you have to overwork yourself when you're working towards these big goals, because otherwise they don't happen. But try not to overwork yourself to this extent, because you will feel the effects for a long time, longer than you think maybe. So after my dissertation, I did nothing for quite a while because I felt so unwell. I basically did nothing. And that was the right thing to do, but there's not really that much to report on. So the next big thing that happened was I applied for universal credit and PIP. In the UK, these are benefits. Universal credit is for anyone out of work or in low paying work, and PIP is for anyone with a disability or impairment that affects their life to a significant extent. I'm putting PIP in both the good and the bad column. It was horrible to do. The form for PIP is incredibly long, it's incredibly personal, and basically what you have to do is list everything wrong with you and everything wrong with your life and really delve into how bad it is to be you. And that's really hard, both physically and mentally. I struggled with the writing of it, I struggled with the brain fog, the thinking of things to say, the exhaustion, all of that. But I also really struggled with the mental and the emotional aspects of it. I really felt in order to do the form, I had to lean in to the things I try and keep out of my head, the listing every difficulty, leaning into these difficult and sometimes quite private thoughts and feelings about your life, and sometimes things you even may be ashamed about, the things you need help with, and it's so personal and it's so dreary. And I would advise, if you don't have to do a form like this, don't ever just sit and list everything wrong with you and your life and how hard it is, because it really hurt. It really aided my depression in keeping me in a very low mood. I felt very helpless and hopeless. And I think focusing that strongly on all the negative things just makes you sad. And so it's really hard. So why is it in the good column? I'm lucky enough that for me it worked, and now they send me money. And quite honestly, the relief not having to look for work and go to interviews and then get rejected because actually I can't do the work, or worse, get employed and then kill myself trying to do a job and then get fired or have to quit because I can't do the job, and all of that is an incredible source of stress. And I have looked for a job before, I have had a job before, and I am more ill now than I was at the time. And I didn't do great with it at the time. I really struggled with the job. I really struggled with the looking process. I struggled that every time I said, oh, I have this illness, people would turn around and be like, oh, no, you can't have the job. It's not about that, but it's unrelated. But we did tell you to go away as soon as you brought it up. You know, can you stand for 8 hours? No. Can you be in an office for 8 hours? No. Can you work nights? No. Can you work full time? No. Can you work part time? Maybe, probably not, and only at home, and only if I can have a nap in the day. No job wants to give you a nap in the day, and there's just so many things. And especially at the moment, I'm not okay. I'm not succeeding, really. I'm not at my best, and my best, I think, is right on the borderline of where it may be possible to get a part-time work from home job, but that's very at my best, and my best hasn't been around for 3 or 4 years now, so I don't know if we'll get back to that at some point. Hopefully I will, but I don't know. So the pressure off from having to go through that whole horrible process and having enough money to live on gives me such freedom to rest and look after myself and do this. Obviously, if I was doing the whole looking for a job process shenanigans, I would have no energy for this. Even worse if I had a job, because I would be dead. Not literally, but figuratively. So PIP and Universal Credit are firmly in both columns because it's a horrible process, and I think it's really quite a gross process. I think they are trying to save money in the budget to the extent that they are, one, forcing us to go through this horrible process, and then not allowing a lot of people to benefit from the money, which is a real shame. It's a real both sides of the coin for me. So another thing I did this year was I decided to start volunteering again. Years ago, before university, I used to volunteer with local girl guiding groups, and because my dissertation was now over, I thought I could get back into that. It used to bring me so much happiness, interacting with kids, coming up with activities. It got me out of the house. It made me feel like I had purpose. I thought that would be great. I should do that again. That would be good for my mental health. It'd be good, you know, to get out of the house, to do something. This is in the bad column, unfortunately. My health and my mental health have both changed drastically in the last 4 or 5 years. And though I had anxiety at the time, it is nothing compared to the current anxiety that I have. My current anxiety is rampaging. Very much struggle to sleep. I struggle to stop thinking of everything I've ever done or said. So I went into this thinking it would be the same as it used to be, and it wasn't. I overthought every interaction. I would go home and I couldn't sleep because I really worried that I'd done something wrong, and honestly I just really struggled with it. I struggled physically because I had to get the bus there, and then, you know, a lot of social interaction, and then I had to get the bus home. And I struggled mentally and emotionally because of the anxiety, and also I felt for the first time in a long time very insecure about my disability. I hadn't interacted with kids since before I really identified as disabled, before I had mobility aids. Honestly, I didn't know how to approach it. I didn't know how to talk to them about the topic. I got endless questions, and when I'm out and about in a park or whatever and a child looks at my wheelchair or my stick or ask a question, absolutely no problem. But when it was 20 or 30 of them with questions and being in my personal space and telling me that I couldn't possibly be disabled because I don't look it, I couldn't articulate in the moment why that wasn't correct in a way that would make sense to them. And honestly, I really struggled with it. I think usually I'm quite good at explaining myself, but in that scenario, I felt quite attacked. And obviously they were kids and they were just curious and they didn't know that they were affecting me, but I didn't know how insecure I still was in that whole area. But the attention was very uncomfortable for me. So I think a lot of factors really went together to make the volunteering not work for me, not be good for my health or my mental health. I really struggled, and I'm really kind of sad about that because I used to love that type of thing so much, but it was just horrible. And through no fault of anyone who was there, I think I thought I was very secure and I thought I was very able to deal with questions and disagreements, but actually how I deal with them usually is through a screen. People comment and I reply and I explain, or I link to a video. I respond however I respond, but it's through a text-based medium or it's through a video, and I have time to prepare my thoughts. And I think in those moments I just felt very vulnerable and I really struggled with it, which I think is a shame, but it is what it is. We change and we've just got to go with it. Okay, so now let's go for a best thing. One of the best things I did was take my wheelchair to graduation. I wasn't certain if I needed to, because you sit down through the whole ceremony, you walk briefly, then you sit down again. Where's the walking? Why would you need the chair? The chair was a genius idea. I thought, oh, I might as well take it. It's gonna be a long day. There's no reason to walk when you don't need to, blah, blah, blah. When I was stood in the queue to graduate, I was sat in the wheelchair. When we went outside after the graduation, I was in the wheelchair. When we walked from one location to the other, I used the wheelchair. When we walked from the event home or to dinner, I used the wheelchair. I don't know how I ever doubted whether I needed to take it, but absolutely, if you're graduating and you have mobility issues, definitely take your mobility aids, because it's a long day. It's a hard day, but also you want to be able to enjoy it as much as you can. You want to enjoy it fully and be able to really celebrate your achievement, and you don't want to be too worried about your illness, your body, your health to enjoy it. And though obviously it was still a difficult day, still painful, I still struggled afterwards, the wheelchair made all the difference, and I was able to participate in the day from the morning to the evening, and it was really fun and it was not too difficult. I'd absolutely recommend taking mobility aids to any special occasions, even if you think they're going to be mostly sitting, because there's always lots of faff and stuff going on. Wheelchairs are key. I think I might have gotten these in the wrong order, but it doesn't matter. Something I did really quite wrong was we went on a trip to see my brother after we went hot air ballooning. Now, hot air ballooning was maybe the source of the difficulty, the pain, the fatigue, or the nightmare. I wouldn't say that that was a problem. Though it was hard, it was absolutely worth it. And hot air ballooning was amazing, and it was my mum's 60th birthday present, and I absolutely would not change that. What I would change was the next day going to visit my brother. That was ridiculous. That was an incredibly bad choice. I needed several days of lying down after the hot air balloon event, and I didn't have it because we were in a different place. I wasn't in my own bed, and we were visiting my brother, so we wanted to do activities, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do anything. I just felt awful the whole time, and that was really silly of us to think that hot air ballooning would just be this one small activity. I know myself, I really should have thought this through, but hot air ballooning is a big activity. I didn't stand up the whole time, but I stood up a lot, and it was amazing, and it lasted for hours. It lasted a lot longer than I thought. The hot air ballooning was only about an hour and a bit, I think, or maybe it was 2 hours and a bit, I can't actually remember. But there's lots of faff before and lots of faff after, and then we had to come back from where we'd ballooned to, and it was a whole process. And though it was amazing, it was more than I anticipated, and therefore way too much to do before then immediately doing more things. But one of the benefits of this disastrous trip was we finally recognised something we'd been missing this whole time. I wasn't back to normal. I hadn't gone back to normal after finishing my dissertation. Somehow we just not noticed that. We kind of just kept expecting me to be how I had been before university and be able to do the things I could do before, and then being surprised when I couldn't. And we hadn't put all the pieces together and really concluded things are different now and you're going to have to do things in a different way. But after this trip to see my brother, we put the pieces together finally, and we started referring to it as new rules. So the analogy I've been using is you have your set of rules of how to deal with your illness, what causes what, how flare-ups are, how long they last, all these rules about how everything works. And when you overwork yourself, especially if you're doing it for a long time, it's kind of like boggle, the box with the letters, and if you shake the boggle, it ends up in a different order and different things. And I imagine that with rules. So all these things you know about your chronic illness, when you overwork yourself for significant periods of time, that's boggling the rules, which means you don't know the rules anymore. There are new rules, you have to work them out, you have to get to know them all over again, and to expect them to go back to what they were before is unreasonable, because obviously you boggle, it doesn't do the same thing again, or it'd be very unlikely. So we started identifying this idea that there are different rules now. The rules are different, what we need to do is different, how we need to behave and how we react to different things, they are different now. I need more rest time, I need to do less, and that has made a big difference. Oh, my foot is numb. And this idea of new rules has made such a difference. We're still working out what the new rules are, but we are more mindful that what you expect to happen after an event isn't necessarily what's going to happen because you don't know the rules. And that is a big help in terms of planning and predicting the rest you're going to need after something and what you can do, things like that. The idea of new rules is, I think, the main best thing that I've done for my CFS this year, because of course the rules are different now, but I had to identify it. The old rules had to completely fail me, I think, before I realised you're looking at the wrong rule book. You're looking at the rule book thinking, yes, this should be fine, and then it being wildly not fine. Here we are in a new place, new rules, gotta work them out all over again. And the final thing I've got is another good thing. So the end of the year is looking a little bit up. I'm calling it streamlining, but basically what I mean is I'm trying to make my life easier. I'm trying to reduce the difficulty of basically living. So I'm trying to identify the pain points of my life, things that I struggle with, things that either make me feel bad or I can't do, things that trigger my anxiety, things that trigger my low mood, etc, etc. Trying to identify these points and put in better systems, be it items, systems, processes, I don't know. I'm trying to put in these better systems so that my life is easier, that these regular jobs and things you need to do are easier, more doable, to streamline my life, basically. I am very much in the process of streamlining, and I'm thinking I might do a whole video on all the things I've done to streamline my life so far and my ideas on what I might do to streamline in the future. Let me know if you have any interest in that. But simplifying my life so far has been working. There's some things that you always know you have to do, like packing, like cleaning, like cooking, and to make all of these jobs easier is to make general life easier. So streamlining is going to be my main focus for the new year. Everything is getting streamlined, so including decluttering and making my space literally more streamlined, but also lots of different areas. So I don't know if it's going to be a series or if it's going to be just a couple of videos, but I think because my focus is on streamlining, I think we're going to have some videos on the topic, and hopefully it will help you streamline your life if you have any interest in that. And and find ways to make your life easier and more doable, ideally so you can be more independent. That's what I'd like. I'd like to be able to do things easier, to be less anxious about the jobs that I have to do because they're not as hard, and to be more independent, meaning I don't have to rely on others as much for things because I've streamlined the processes. So that is my plan for 2024. I hope you found this interesting. Let me know the best and worst things you've done in 2023 for your chronic illness or ME or whatever. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!